Hey, welcome to another episode of Coffee with Mirko. I hope you're well, hope you're safe, and soon we'll be joined by multiple Australian Barista champion Hugh. So here's the man. We'll bring him on straight away. Hey,
Hey,
mate.
how are you?
I'm fantastic. How you traveling, brother?
Good. Yeah, things feel like they're sort of going back to normal, which is really nice. Really nice.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And first and foremost, you, your family, everyone is safe and sound.
Yeah, everyone's good. Yeah, most people have been working from home, so yeah. My mum's she's ICU, and my sister's a nurse, but they're all good. So they're
Well, big shout out and a huge thank you from me and plenty of others for being in the uh, first of line. I mean, it's incredibly, it must be incredibly stressful for them, I'm assuming, a little bit.
yeah. I'll get to go up to Sydney next week and see them, which will be really nice. It's been like probably 6, 8 weeks since I've seen them, and I'm used to every other week going up to Sydney, and yeah, it's gonna be good.
Hey, yeah, it's gonna be good. Yeah, for sure, man.
How you
Yeah,
going?
yeah, good, man. I think I'm kind of I'm kind of scared to go back to normal. I kind of like this.
You've been a busy boy. Hey, you've been talking to everybody.
Like, yeah, I gotta say, it's been an interesting 3 4 weeks, and it's been good, and I'm really really happy to have you on and to meet you, even though virtually. Hopefully, we'll meet you soon at in Brownswick. But look, let's get the ball rolling for the people watching because I want to know more about you. They heard my voice too many times in the last month. Um, Hugh, you're considered one of the best baristas in the world. But how did you start your coffee journey?
um, I moved down to Canberra from Sydney to do uni, and I was studying commerce because I didn't really know what I wanted to do out of school. And then, well, I went up to like it's one of my first job applications. I went to like a coffee cart, and it was kind of commercial coffee. And then we changed. We had an awesome team there. We changed over to Honor Coffee back then. We were like one of the first customers that Sasha had. What was that? Almost 10 years, 10 or 11 years ago. Yeah, so
Damn.
long time. So he was roasting out of a garage, and I think he got kicked out of the garage and moved to another garage, and started a roastery, and yeah, it was all very fresh and all that sort of stuff. And then when they opened the roastery, I started working there and started competing. Like he just was like, "Oh, you want to do coffee competitions?" And I just said yes without thinking about it. And then
Yeah.
10 years later, I'm still competing. It's crazy to taking over my life.
Well, I think I think it's quite beautiful because I mean, Matt was studying law, you were studying commerce, and then you both found coffee, or coffee found you, I should say. And I guess the rest is history. Before we answer the question that just popped in about coffee cocktails, I mean, just because you touched base on it, could you kind of give the audience a little bit of a summary of all the competition you took part and won? I think it's super important as well for one member watching, especially Bianca, because we'll get into that later.
Which competitions I competed in? Well, there's been lots. I think I competed in barista competition 8 years, maybe 9 years. I think I lost count now.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so that was we sort of started competition not really knowing what it was about and how to do it properly. And I know, yeah, we were very far off on score sheet at the start. But we had the ACT, like our little state competition. So obviously we'd kind of do really well in that because we were the only ones really competing, and a couple others. And then you get to the national comp, and then you'd have to just big learning experiences every year, not making it out of the first round each time. And I think in my second year, what seemed like a fluke, I guess. I managed to beat Sam and Gus, who, like, this was Sash's year off, so he was the winner every year. And it was always, who's going to come second to Sash? And then I came out of nowhere and won that, and everybody was super surprised. And went into nationals, into semi-finals, completely out of my depth, and that was like cluster. It was bad. Channeled shots and everything, going wrong. I think I pressed my signature drink through this sort of frame thing and lost half of it down the side of the vessel that was supposed to catch it. And I ran out of signature drink, and it was like, there you go. Sorry. It was like the last cup had no drink in it. But yeah, so then I went and I won, I think, the ACT comp. I think I came second to Sash the year after, but I made it through to the finals of Australian comp. I think everyone was really surprised at that as well. And then I went from, fifth to third to first, and then last year second to Matt.
Yeah, I was there both 18, 19. Obviously, it was at Toby's stand, but I obviously watched you and the other guys, and yeah, always good to see you boys down in Melbourne. Now, thanks for getting the summary. I think the key component to that, I think an element that's very underestimated and not quite taught in school is patience. I think we're so used to be able to get what we want right here, right now. It's like downloading an app. It's like it's that quick, and then you get your food delivered at the door. But I think patience is something super important, especially for the younger people, in the sense of, because we live in such a fast world. I mean, I didn't grow up with a mobile phone, so things were a little bit slower, even communication, where now it's like, we got to keep up.
Yeah, there's so much content out there now that it's just like, I'm trying to learn the things that I want to learn about, and then there's just bombarding from everywhere, all over. Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's why you were comfortable with not getting the first year in the top 6. You were comfortable to just chipping away until you get to that first place, which I think it's incredibly important.
I think the biggest part of it, though, was like, for those, and it's been like that every year, it's just focusing on yourself and how you make yourself better. And it's like not about what you're coming, it's not about any of that sort of stuff. And that's what I guess has driven me every year, is going, okay, well, last year I learned, a weakness in that, and, smash out that weakness the next year and turn that into a strength. And that's what I guess has been the most fun about the competition.
Which is extreme, it's self-awareness. And I think self-awareness is essential, because you're stripping away the entitlement. I was talking to Len Butler, one of the first episodes, and it took him a little bit to understand that the judges' feedback was to helping him rather than him feeling bad about that feedback. And I think it's important to get that mindset. There was a question initially before we go into the deepest topics. What other cocktails do you know other than espresso martini? I think there's a few.
Oh man, I'm lucky enough to spend a bit of time with. I've got Danny Wilson. He was number 3 in the world a couple of years ago, and Nicole Batfield as well. She's Geordie's girlfriend as well here in Australia. So yeah, I've had a lot of exposure to heaps of different coffee cocktails. I mean, you obviously got like Irish coffees, but then seeing thousands of variations of Irish coffees, and to more obscure stuff that's just full of koji clarified rye and just all sorts of crazy stuff. So I love it. Cool.
Yeah, that was the first time that I read that question. I'm glad someone asked that, I guess. But and then you got to win. So what did push you? What was the secret, in your opinion, that got you to the win?
The first year, I think it was just real organization, and it was like focusing on I think that first year was like all about lists and, you know, structure and how I train, and like everything before stage was the biggest thing. Then the year after, I mean, I had a bit of a screw up in the semi-finals in Dublin, and shots running horrendously bad and everything. So then it was really like a lot of it was going back to basics. So you always start competitions thinking, oh, you know, you got to change the world and you got to do all this stuff, and everybody kind of goes in with grand plans early on, but unless you spend a lot of time on absolute basic fundamentals, like you miss out on most of the points. It's
Yeah. And yeah, no, thanks for that. And Grigory's is asking, let me grab it back. Can you tell your opinion on frozen coffee? And that's perfect because we just had Kirk from Sub-Zero on, so that's a big
I
fan.
love frozen coffee. Yeah, like I've been preparing for a competition, for a national competition, which should have been, what, 2 months ago, I think, in Australia. And I have like one of the most unbelievable coffees. It was all roasted. All my stuff was roasted, and 7 days out from Australian comp, it was all called off. And it's all just sitting there in the freezer, a perfect age, tasting incredible. I'm trying not to drink it all because
I was going to ask you that.
So I'm just got that laying down until it's time, and then just pull it out and go. So I'm
I suppose you're really praying to don't have a electricity outage.
I did have that the other week, but it only went down for, you know, a couple of hours. I was freaking out, and it turned out fine. So sorry, there's only like 6 kilos of that coffee that I produced and stuff. Went over with spent some time with guys over in Colombia and did some things, and it's not possible to recreate it in the next 6 months. So I was like, now.
Yeah,
But it's all
panic.
Yeah.
And Bubble Beans asking, was it hard? I like this question. Was it hard to push yourself after getting first place? I think that's a beautiful question.
No, because I knew in Dublin, I did not execute what I should have executed, and also I saw some major flaws in what I was doing. That's like, for me, the most exciting thing about Barista Comp is becoming aware. Like it's new awareness each time, and you're like, okay, well, this is a fundamental flaw in, you know, my coffee or my like presentation style or whatever that is, and then you get to make it better. And then once you sort of make that better, then you get a new awareness, and every year that builds and builds and builds, and you get to then focus on new aspects. So for me, like this year, I was the most motivated I've ever been. I was working harder than I ever have, and I was working on smaller details. So,
and I think that Bubble Beans anticipated my next question, which is winning is fantastic, but it can also increase the level of pressure, and it can make people change a little bit. How did you remain, how did you remain under control and humble despite the victories? You know what I'm saying? I think you just kind of answered that. She's great.
I wouldn't call myself humble.
Well, you just talk about self-awareness. I think people who are not humble, they have very low self-awareness.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. It's learning, you know, how do you affect other people, and how does your interactions with people, you know, what's the greater impact of that? And I mean, I've obviously been lucky enough to have some, you know, really awesome people around me who've been able to be, you know, super honest about, you know, how you conduct yourself and what the effect of, you know, everything is. And it's just awesome to kind of think of it in that way, like, why are you doing it? And trying to continually think bigger than what you were thinking. And it's just, I mean, I think that's what's so exciting about coffee, right? Like, you know, every time you learn something, then you're like, oh, cool, there's a new opportunity that I didn't see before.
That tiny word is a huge word. Why should be written in every single wall of your house for many, many things. About Coffee Panama is actually asking something in relation to how many days should be coffee in the freezer. I guess the question is, how long can you keep it in the freezer? And before you answer that, Korean, we know this guy, SCA trainer. I remember that Hugh Kelly came to my country in 2017, but now I'm in Australia. There you go.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, first question, what was it? How long to keep it in the freezer? I've got my 2017 WBC coffee still in the freezer, and it tastes awesome. It tastes awesome.
And is there a little drawer for when you have a shit day and you're like, I need to treat myself? Is that?
Yeah, it's really nice. So that was the first ever, from what I know, whole cherry carbonic macerated coffee ever produced, and it's kind of like this. I got about 30 shots left, and every now and then I know my grind setting on which grinder. I only run it through one grinder because I know that it'll run right and adjust to the temperature, and I never have to waste a shot. Yeah, it's a nice thing to have there. It's really nostalgic, kind of going back and having that.
It's like a reserve. Some people have that drop of whiskey, the expensive stuff. I get you. Gregory is asking, what do you believe about SCA standard for espresso, and how important is the perfect TDS?
So I mean, I think espresso can't necessarily be put into a numbers box personally. Like I'm not being critical of the way anyone does espresso, but I guess my personal opinion is that, everybody has their own creative license with it, and it's what you like to drink, what you like to serve, and it's more importantly like what tastes good. And I've had espressos of extremely high TDS, and people serving espressos going, we've got really high extraction, and this is the most efficient and even extraction, or whatever that is. And then I'm tasting it going, I'm tasting like process. You're pulling way too much from, like, it might be a natural process with a wafer characteristic that you can hide with a less extraction or more concentrated or whatever. And it's stripping away numbers and going, all right, what's happened to this coffee, and what do I want to show and what do I want to hide? I think that's more important than any kind of, I extracted 27% whatever out of this coffee. Like, that doesn't matter if it doesn't taste good. So I think it's really, really, like, my biggest thing is WBC score sheet is so helpful to help structure and kind of strip away a bit of bias and help you kind of go, all right, like, this is a negative and that's a negative and that's a negative in taste. What are the potential changes that I can do to remove it? That's
that answered the question. And I think also stripping away from what from the competition, there's also the element of, as long as you like it, on a more, I think that's also important, which you kind of tidy up with something that's coming next. Because I don't want to drill you on competitions, because I'm sure that you've got 1,000 questions around competition all the times, but this is one of the most important for me because Bianca is watching. Bianca is such an amazing individual. Like, she's only 16 and she roasts and she crazy. Like, honestly, like insanity. What advice would you have for the really young people who are really looking up at people like yourself, Sash, and all the others? Because it's a long uphill journey.
I think the biggest things are, obviously from like a technical standpoint, taste a lot of things and be super aware of what you're tasting, and like, it's such an awesome time to be developing that. I know people that have that sort of maybe drilled into them from their parents, if they're like from a wine background or whatever it is, and while you've got all that neuroplasticity and all that sort of stuff, you can learn so much, like, that's going to give you that advantage palate wise. So take this time and really do heaps of conscious eating and all that sort of stuff. Like I wish I had done more of it when I was younger.
And that literally means even trying different fruits and whatnot.
Yeah. How does it taste? What does it taste like? Where do I feel it? How do I describe it? Like doing that as much as possible. And it's a habit of mine anyway, when even if I'm at a table with people, I'm eating dinner with someone and they might not be coffee people or food people. I can always take the 1 or 2 seconds, and it's not like you're gone from a social situation. It's like 1 or 2 seconds of, oh, what's this like to me, and just acknowledging it and processing that, and then you lock back in, and it doesn't change how you interact with people, but you can be learning all the time.
Cool.
But there's that, and then also, yeah, I think learning to be very, very open to feedback, being introspective, like look at how your actions, how your words, whatever affects other people. So that's like one of the biggest things that I've been lucky enough to learn at Honor as well, is that there's no egos, no one's right and wrong. It's just how you affect other people, and then try to help as much as possible. I guess that's gonna open more doors for you than close. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think the attitude open doors also towards the right mentors, which are probably a very key component to the story as well. Now, we all love coffee, I believe, in this chat, and people are going to rewatch or re-listen to this. But coffee really wouldn't be possible without its people and community. Origin, barista, consumer, we all talk about it. However, I think we have forgotten about this element in many occasions. Our eyes are in the cup, in the jug, on the machine, on getting an account, on closing an account, on price. Could going back to real origin, the people, combined with the overall experience from the minute the consumer walks into the door, and building relationships with consumer, farmers, barista, be the element to sort of save the industry and go through it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's back to that thing of it's not about you. I mean, you need to obviously think for yourself and how you can sort of develop, but it's sort of thinking where you fit in amongst that sort of system and how you impact others. Like that's, for me, especially the last year, that's been my biggest conscious focus, has been what is the effect of what I'm doing on anyone else who's interacting with where I sit, and is this decision a right and ethical decision, and is this adding value to something, or is it not? And it makes it pretty easy and like knowing what your values are, and it makes decisions a lot easier. And I think that thinking that way, it's going to help you, listening to your intuition of, is this right, is this wrong, is this going to help them, or is it not? And always going for that positive direction. I think if everybody thinks like that, yeah, we're going to be in a better spot for sure.
And someone asked me today, actually, a couple of hours ago, whether I judge people by what type of coffee they drink. And my answer was super quick. It was no. Like, I might condemn a little bit the $1 coffee from certain brands on an ethical level, but I wouldn't condemn the person who's not aware of it. If you don't know, you don't know. But at the same time, we need the people to drink coffee, and we just need to avoid the barrier of, oh, I drink this, I'm bad. Like I think we kind of get caught up into that. We make it almost unreachable.
I'm sure you talked to Matt about the bubble, the coffee bubble, Matt Lewin.
A little bit, yeah.
I think that's definitely something that I've been. I mean, it's so easy to get so into technical details and stuff, and then to get so obsessed with it, and that be the only thing. But I've gone into cafes where people have been so bogged down in technical details, and they've just forgotten about the basics, and smiling at you, like seeing if you had a nice day, like making you feel good, all those things. I think that's like it is as a whole. Like it's everything together. It's not just one part. Yeah, like it's definitely the more you make coffee, the more you strip it back to sort of basics and sort of appreciate that sort of stuff.
Especially if we have just spent 1, 2, 3 months in a lockdown, that we've been stripped away from the human connection interaction, and some people will want to. Some people are craving that, like already, and will become a point of contact. I follow a good friend of mine from Italy is this specialty coffee shop, and they cop the harder than us, obviously in Italy.
Oh, it's been bad, yeah.
And still, here they are. They just reopened, and even though there's not a takeaway culture, they're building it. They wear masks and gloves, and what he's really, I can see from his story, focusing is just really trying to get that connection back. And I think that's going to be adding value to the beverage, which it leads to price. It's safe to say that coffee has been underpriced since the time, like since day one. Do you think coffee should be treated and priced more like wine and beer?
Okay, so like wine is a hard one because, and like, yes, coffee has had more inputs and more stages in process and all that sort of stuff. And like, I understand, sorry, as in coffee's had a lot more things done to it before it reaches the end point. But the reality is coffee isn't necessarily executed on a basic level as much as wine is, I believe. I think you, like, for example, you go into a cafe and you might have, coffee completely out of balance more often than you would have a wine that's completely out of balance. And then you're thinking as well, when are you drinking it in the day? Are you going to spend, $100 on a breakfast degustation? Like, is that where you treat yourself to that sort of level? So like, it is a very different product in a different social construct. It is also of different levels of execution to what wine is. So it's sort of sitting in a different box. With that said, I do think coffee should be priced higher. But I think it's hard to justify, for example, a Bordeaux wine price for coffee for a lot of people, because it's going to be such a big barrier. You got to go step by step. And we've sort of experienced a lot of this in our shop, where, if we had tried to sell, a $12 filter 5 years ago, absolutely wouldn't have happened. But now we're regularly selling $12 filters as a standard. And, but that's because we built that sort of level of trust and level of execution there. And I think it's step by step. It's kind of not going, oh, it needs to be here. It's kind of, how do you get that little bit more, and how do you slowly change perception? Being realistic about it.
And no, thank you. And I'll add on to that after I read this question from 808 Coffee Blog. What's next? Anything you're working on that will change the coffee game? I think now it's relevant to ask that question. And just to finish on pricing, I think you're right. I just believe that there is also labor that goes into the cup of coffee versus opening a bottle of wine. I used to be in the wine industry. I think it would take a while, but I mean, I hope that Mark Dundon's prediction is correct about $7 cup of coffee to be the new standard soon. But that was a year ago on a journal that I read. But yeah, so 808 question is about if you got anything coming up new to change the game. It's a big...
I'm working on a few projects. A few little personal things that I can't obviously go too much detail in, but
nothing. Don't reveal anything. This is recorded. Say as much as you want to say.
I've got a personal project I've been working on the side, because obviously we had COVID hit and the business get absolutely hammered, so we all cut back our hours to sort of make things sort of stable and sure into the future. So I had a few extra days a week, which was really nice. I haven't had that in years, and I haven't been traveling, which has been crazy. I haven't left Canberra in like 2 months. So
wow.
I've been sort of starting to build something that hopefully will release sometime later in the year, which would be pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about that. And there was some really fun things that I've been doing that was connected to my competition sort of routine as well. Some real, like, really crazy stuff. So we're working with some people over in Europe on that. And yeah, we were going to go over and say hey to them and visit and set up some really cool stuff. But then obviously all this hit, so that's got a pause button. But, you know, there's a lot of things in the pipeline. So I'm very excited.
Cool. Well, I guess, you know, they're going to keep following you or start following you to know more. On the half mark, I got the out of the box question. Who, if you could, who would you like to have dinner with?
Who would I like to have? I'd love to have dinner with you.
Yeah, finally someone. Yeah, well, I mean, that's probably more achievable than a few answers that I've heard so far.
We'll set it up when I come down to Melbourne.
All right, I'll take it. But if you, on top of me, is there anyone that you really like to go out with dinner with?
Inside the coffee industry or out?
Outside, even dead people.
Even dead people. Oh, and I think just Michael Jordan would be pretty cool.
Have you been watching The Last Dance?
Yeah, I watched The Last Dance. So
yeah,
that'd be awesome. I reckon that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. To be honest, I've been changing my personal answer on a daily basis. But yeah, I thought about Michael Jordan a few times.
There's so many people that it's that's the first that pops into my head. I guess this is fresh.
I actually got into Last Dance because I'm not really the guy that sits down and watches too much stuff, especially when I'm by myself. But Rubens Gardelli told me about it because he plays basketball. And he said something about that show, and he's like, man, you gotta watch it. I'm like, all right. So if Rubens said
basketball, but I loved it. It was awesome.
Oh, it's great. Anyone watching that, you should watch it. Okay, Michael Jordan or myself. You put me next to Michael Jordan. I appreciate that. So I think that we see coffee in a very different light, you and I and a lot of other people. Unfortunately, there's people who see coffee as a temporary transition or not quite real and serious, despite the person who's saying that drinks coffee every single day, which is quite the irony and the paradox. What would you say to people who are out there chasing the coffee, the passion coffee, but they're stuck into the good job, whether it's on a cultural level or whether it's society driven?
They're stuck in the good job. What do you mean by like stuck?
I think some people, their family pushed them into dentistry or in the medical field or something like that, and it's considered a good job, but they are dying to learn how to make coffee. They really want to start a coffee blog.
There's so much that you can gain out of the coffee industry. I mean, it's not like this was you're going to be a doctor or a dentist or whatever with my family, but there was a little bit of underlying when I started in coffee. I know you like this and you can do this for a bit, and then you can sort of obviously look at what other jobs there are as well, like later on, and it's sort of like, come on, whatever. Like I'd hear that from my family a little bit, but once I started really pushing with coffee and really committing to it and sort of obviously sort of doing well in the competitions and sort of starting to build a business and a life and all that sort of stuff, like it quickly changes their perception and it becomes obvious. And I think people realize that as soon as when you're passionate about something and you can't stop thinking about something and you want to read about something, you're going to do so much better in that than anything else. I think even within the coffee industry, you can be doing jobs that aren't you. And it's really important to be super honest with yourself. It's like, does this make me happy or does it not? And if it does not make you happy, then you're not in the right place. You need to find what that is that makes you happy. And only then can you do well. Like that's it.
You hit jackpot on a couple of things. People let them sink in. That people are gonna rewatch this. I hope they're gonna rewind and listen to what you just said twice or thrice.
It's also as well, like with coffee as well, I've realized, especially the last couple of years, is you can get so deep in it, and you can spend so much time and effort and go like crazy hours of work and all that sort of stuff. But I've sort of pulled back a little bit the last probably year and a half, and just like having a bit of life balance and having a bit of something outside coffee is completely changed the way my mind works. I'm more effective at everything I do all the time now. And I'm not spending as much time working. But having that conscious effort to go, I need an escape from coffee. It helps you think better about coffee.
Yeah. And I think what you said also before is super relevant to many people. It should be relevant to many people because I usually make the example of football, soccer, whatever you call it, in the sense of people get stuck into, if I want to get into soccer, I need to be the next Cristiano Ronaldo. I need to make it to the national team. But reality is that there are such a wide range of options within each industry, as in soccer, in coffee, you know, like the successful coffee writers, the successful coffee blogger, the successful coffee YouTuber, roasters, salesmen, baristas, competitions. It's not like you have to win barista comp and that's it. There's so many different faces to it that they can generate a career. And to put it in perspective, I mean, can you tell people what are you currently doing at Ona, and what's your, you know, what do you do there? You know, so people give them an idea.
Yeah, I run training centers. So I manage some of that. So we have a training center in Canberra, Sydney, and we're starting one in Melbourne as well. And so sort of managing and hoping to build that training department side of the business. Work in research and development. So like product testing, like I'm testing biodegradable bags at the moment and seeing if there's any options that actually taste good. Quality control, all that sort of stuff. So it's a relatively varied role, but it was okay. I had my focus so heavily on competition for the first few months of this year, and then obviously that was just pause button. But now, like I've shifted my focus, and it's like, okay, there's these exciting things in work that I can do. So don't need to have competition there all the time, and it doesn't have to be the sole driving focus. And I think it's really important to have a thing. If you're doing competition, it's important to have a thing in your work that you're sort of trying to build at the same time. Helps give you more varied perspective.
And this is the proof in the pudding. You know, you have such a pretty diverse, interesting role that you enjoy. And it's, you know, you're not just a barista per se. You also, it's part of it, just as kicking a ball, but, you know, you could be a trainer and a coach as well in soccer. So 100%. We got a couple of questions. What do you think about the prices of competition coffee? From Grigory's again.
Prices of competition coffee.
Sorry, Project Origin just dropped a very funny question. But anyway,
it's a complex question. Like competition coffees that get really high prices, it's fantastic that they're creating a perception and a new level of expectation of what a coffee can be valued at. That's a great side of it. At the same time, it's also, some of these coffees are, I mean, it's kind of like when you get to wine. A good example is like Lafayette, is, you know, it's thousands of dollars a bottle. And then you've got other, wineries that are close to there and a similar quality, but they might be $500 a bottle instead of several thousand. And the quality difference it's very small. I think that's where I kind of have a problem sometimes, is that it can be, reputation can inflate things and be seen as, like better than they are, which is kind of, Yeah, so it's a double-edged sword. You're kind of looking at something that can increase the value of these other coffees that obviously are undervalued, but at the same time, it can be prohibitive as well to be able to
Yeah.
access this coffee.
And you got the underdogs element too, for sure. And
Love the
Zach
underdog.
and Zach Schneider ask, best milk espresso coffee you've had this year?
Yeah, best espresso. Best espresso was my coffee in the freezer. It's crazy. I can't talk about it. It's insane. Best milk I've had was what was the best milk? Pacamara. It was regionals. What was it? Gilberto Barriona, El Salvador, carbonic maceration, Pacamara. So this was last year's CM, and it had rested for, what was it, 14 months or something, and we had like one batch left, and it was delicious. Like so much texture, like Neapolitan ice cream, but just dense. That Pacamara gave it that extra layer of density and depth, and then you had that kind of high tone pink, like strawberry jam sort of stuff on top of it, and it was just layered and cool. That was super fun.
Wow, that sounds pretty delicious. And then we got someone that you know very well, Barista Jan, asking, what do you want to do when you win the Worlds?
What do I want to do when I win the world? Yeah, there's a few things that that I see in terms of, okay, coffee execution at the end point relies so much on the lead up in the system, and there's a few things that I've been working on along the way that make that endpoint so much easier to execute. So for example, I've had an espresso that ran at 12 seconds, and I had an espresso that ran the same coffee that ran at 50 seconds, and they both tasted good. So, and I'm actually not all that worried about absolutely nailing the second or the gram, because the things have been lined up in a certain way. I'm looking forward to explore that. I can't really go into too much more detail on that, but I'm looking forward to explore some of those steps a little bit more and go a bit deeper, because I think there's some pretty cool opportunities.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because about this time last year, I've had the luck to taste some coffee sourced by Charlotte and roasted by Nick Ray. And when at first they were talking about extracting 12 and a half seconds, it was crazy. And I was like, how is that going to work? And yeah, it was delicious. The Mexican coffee, I think it was 13-second extraction, and it was great. I just got notified that my phone is running on low battery, but hopefully it'll be all right.
You'll be all right. Positive thinking.
Positive thinking. But yeah, so I think extraction is short and long. I think there's a lot of fun in there. 100%.
Yeah, I think there is, but at the same time, I think that if with the right understanding and the right inputs, the right lead up, being a barista can be easier. It can be less frustrating, and in turn, we can explore flavor a bit more. I think that's what's exciting about the capabilities that we're sort of learning at the moment. There's a lot of opportunities because I remember, battling grinders a lot when I was working in cafes, like a lot, these busy places, and especially when we had 5 grinders and they're heating up and cooling down, and you're just trying to get things close to your recipe, and you're like, oh, I know if it's not quite right, it's gonna, it's a frustrating thing, and that shouldn't be the life of a barista.
It shouldn't. It shouldn't be. There's a few funny comments. Comp Thinking says you could have a spare phone ready to go. I like that. What would you do? What would you do if you, Barista? Yeah, of course, asking what would you do if coffee wasn't your career?
coffee wasn't my career. Oh, as in like for work. Man, I don't know. That's really tough. I reckon I would be doing a fermentation kitchen. I reckon set up a room and make specialist ingredients for restaurants and stuff. I'd set up, cool rooms and start making, growing heaps of koji and whole lot of fun stuff. Just fermenting a whole lot of things. It's a kind of like a little pet hobby of mine. I'm obsessed with all that sort of stuff in cooking. So I think
kimchi, sauerkraut, pickles, that's your jam?
Oh yeah, I love it. All the like growing, mold on things and seeing what you can do with it, making misos and
could you make I don't want to steal Team Wendelbo ideas here, but have you been playing with kombucha and coffee?
Yeah, I've done a lot of, as in like kombucha to mix with coffee or to...
I've just saw recently a post, and I didn't read too much into it, but I think Team Wendelbo just released I think it was a kombucha coffee infused or something. I'm assuming it's delicious, but yeah.
To be honest, I did a bit of stuff with I'm not a huge fan of kombucha usually, so I'm not that into vinegar, like in drinks.
And yet you like fermentation. Interesting.
I like fermentation, but I think fermentation is a thing that you can control to go, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, and we're going to avoid these things. And we're going to get, like, for me, for example, kefir it's got so much better quality of acid than kombucha. I've had kombuchas that are great. I've had like one or two, but most of them are really sharp, and I don't think it's great for cooking. But and I'm not criticizing anyone who likes kombucha at all. But
100%.
I think there's some really, really cool fermentation things that you can do drink wise that I reckon, yeah, delicious. But it's obviously not my focus, and it's so easy to get distracted these days. Hey.
Yeah, but that's a great answer. I think I could see you having your laboratory and secret cellars with the special ingredients and aged fermented ingredients. Bubble Bean's asking, do you think flavor descriptions have become too long like jazz solos?
Dude, I think they've become too long. It depends on who you're talking to. I think the most important thing about flavor descriptions is gauging the audience and making it relevant to them and making sure that they can connect with it. Like I'm not gonna, have a coffee with my mum and say, oh, you're gonna taste pineapples and this and that and da-da-da, and like give them 10 different tasting notes, and like she's just gonna go, yeah, whatever, like I don't really connect with that. I'll go, what's the most distinct, clear, big thing? And then I'll try to elaborate on that to make them understand, why do I see pineapples, for example? And then it's like, yeah, pineapples, the acidity, and feel it in your cheeks, and think about, like, try to draw their attention towards the experience of that so they can actually experience it. If I say, you're going to taste mangosteen and you've never tasted a mangosteen before, how are you going to, I think that's the biggest thing. So
I think actually I couldn't agree more, and I don't want to give this away, but I hope someone listens to me. I think that it could be a super cool trend to just go super basic. I'm just saying, I'm talking super basic, because that's something that, being on the road when I was at Toby's, I had to deal with, because you see so many customers, you hear so many consumers and customers of my customers. Well, back then, now I'm no longer there. And it's like, you hear the people asking, oh, do you put blueberries in the coffee? Like guide me through, what do you mean? Blueberry pie, da, da, da. I think actually it would be super accessible on a sensorial experience level to release almost catered labels or cards, tasting cards to go with your coffee. If you're a coffee shop that perhaps has a huge amount of crowd on the blocks, on the black coffee scene, that might have a second tier tasting notes where you add flavor or two to it, but then you got your basic one for good old mate Joe who just drinks a cappuccino. I really think that stripping back and going back, because I get it, it's competition. It's like, let's get creative to sell it on a marketing point of view. But I think it will sell more if you say cocoa and people actually taste cocoa rather than Jaffa cake with a hint of marzipan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even maybe going a step further back as well and just going a color. Like this milk-based tastes, it's pink and brown. Like think like pink, you're thinking pink berries, you're thinking like that sort of spectrum. And you're giving them the opportunity to sort of experience their own thing within that. And it's not going too crazy, like detailed on that. That's definitely, and we try to kind of do that with our releases now as well, is have a very distinctive color scheme that matches the flavor profile of that coffee, and try to keep like, you know, one or two things that the real hero of that coffee. And people are connecting with it a lot. I think it's,
I like that, yeah. Or even, this is just us talking, just brainstorming, I suppose, but even you could even have, usually it's 3. That's the average that I worked out between roasters. Usually it's 3. And we all know what it goes like. And I think you could have, I know it's not, logistically speaking, could be a nightmare, but you could literally have a tasting note card with 1, with 2, and with 3. You know, I don't know. There's something to it, but
I think going like crazy detailed on tasting cards is not necessarily helpful. I mean, it's kind of like, okay, yes, a coffee can have certain like key characteristics. Let's just say you're looking at, you know, Honduras high grown wash coffee, and the feature of that coffee is its acidity quality and blackcurrant. Like those are the things. Like that acidity is going to sparkle, and it's blackcurrant. And then there's other things there as well. But isn't that where the barista's job is, to sort of connect with the customer and to go, oh, you know what, this person's really into it and they clearly have a good palate, and I've tasted all these other things. All right, let's elaborate on it. Yeah, cool. It's got this as well. Or you just hold back and like sparkling acidity, blackcurrant, and people are like, yeah, cool, I got those 2 things. I'm happy. I think.
I like that. Yeah. Thanks for the question, of course, Alvins. Could you, going back to mines, could you pinpoint a couple of memorable moments throughout your career so far?
Couple of memorable moments. I think obviously, yeah, being with Sash when he won WBC, that was probably one of the biggest ones that stands out. That was pretty crazy. None of us were expecting anything. Or maybe he was, but who knows? That was pretty wild. Sam at Budapest doing Brewers, that was just like opened my eyes to filter coffee in a different way. And obviously winning Australian, for me, 2017 meant a lot more than 2016. And being able to present a coffee that was sort of my own vision, and like actually being able to very much be myself and represent myself in that way, and kind of go, this isn't anyone else's routine. This is my own. That's probably the best one, I think. Yeah.
And in your own words, could you, because we are here, and look, before I ask you the question, because we are at the tail end and Instagram is really cutthroat, I want to say, obviously, huge thank you for giving us this time, your hour. I'm sure that not only Bianca, but all the people that are watching, are going to watch, will get a lot out of this. You went in depth and you showed us a whole different side of you, and I think people will really resonate, digest, and process things that you've said, and I hope they're going to rewatch it a second, a third, and a fourth time. So thank you. So you talked about vision, which it ties perfectly with my next question. What's your coffee mission, and what would you like to see in coffee?
I'd like to see, what I'd like to see is, in terms of like variety of coffees being celebrated for what they are, and executed often. I think that's such a fundamental step in making coffee appreciated and more accessible and like mainstream and everything. It's kind of going, okay, well, let's just say you have a Pacamara that has, you know, a positive and a negative, and you're highlighting and showing that positive and executing it. And I'm tasting that in cafes all over the place. Like that's where you know, then it's about, you know, just the customer connection, and that's when the industry can really grow. So getting these fundamentals in place and just a real focus on flavor and connection. I think that's, yeah,
That's you.
pretty broad, but it's, yeah.
No, well, the beauty, it's like coffee. There's no right or wrong. I mean, that's exactly who you are, and I think showcasing that will allow people to connect with you on a different level when they watch you, when they listen to you, when they read about you, when they see your next project, when they see you competing next. I think it's super relevant. Hugh, usually last question is what's next on Hugh's planet, but I think you covered that. And unless is there anything that you want to say that's coming up very soon, but I don't want you to give away much, really.
Yeah, no,
Like, really.
These chats are hard right now because it's like I have I have these things that I'm so crazy passionate about right now.
You know what, then? I'll answer the question for you. When you're about to releasing and you want to go public, you let me know and we'll do another stream.
Awesome, sounds good.
We'll release it. Hugh, big shout out to you, obviously the team at Honor. I hope to see you when Melbourne opens up. I really hope. I'm assuming you're going to fly down.
Yeah, I'll come down for sure. Yeah.
Meet you and the boys in person and girls. And yeah, big thank you again. I think lots of people would love to rewatch this. 100%, man.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you, brother. Feeling super grateful, man. Good to meet you finally.
See you later, everybody.
See you, buddy. Thank you all, as always, for being here. Thank you all. Thank you, Hugh, especially. There's been a lot of valuable things that we all learned and that we all gonna take home with. And I'm really gonna rewatch myself this again. Bianca, Tanti, Amos from Brew Shark, Zach, Bintu Machine, I'm getting back to you. I know I gotta get back to you. Rosie, Bubble Beans, Glenn, Dan, Yanina, big shout out to all of you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everything. And I don't wanna be biased, but thank you publicly to Bianca, such an amazing, young, talented coffee person who sent me a batch of coffee that she roasted, and I can't wait to try it, drink it, and I will share with you how beautiful that coffee is. And Brew Shark, this is the best part of my day, which brings all the motivation to the next day. Brew Shark, thank you for being here. And if you ever need motivation, if you ever need support or anything, all of you guys watching, reach out to me. I'm always available. It takes me sometimes a few hours to get back to people, but I'm always try to help. That's the #1 reason why I'm doing this. And my battery is gonna die in a matter of minutes. And also the show is gonna shut down in about 45 seconds. Again, Bianca, you stay motivated, be strong, just keep doing what you're doing. Your values are such on point, really good. Brew Shark, you got this, and Bean2 Machine, I'm getting back to you 1000%. I had the goosebumps when you sent me what you sent me, and I couldn't quite process. It made me super happy what you sent me, and I didn't expect it, so I was like, oh, hang on, I need to get back to this in a proper way. And yeah, Brew Shark, I'll check out your profile right now. I'll charge my phone. Guys, as always, be safe, stay well, drink lots of coffee, experiment, have fun, 28 seconds down. I don't have anyone programmed for tomorrow. We're gonna get back next week with D-Train Coffee.
and we'll see how we go with the new restrictions, because I'm going to get a little bit more into work. I'll bring along the way, but there's a lot of exciting projects that I'm working on, and I'm going to release in a few months. And yes, Bubble Beans, just DM me. Happy to talk. Guys, 3 seconds to go. Thank you.